Okay, on to the next lesson. This is pretty miserable. I apologize in advance. First off, this first problem is it's supposed to be 3x to the fourth. Okay, it's 3x to the fourth minus 75x to the second. Now, this is pretty miserable. There are 4 answers. How do you know that? Because you have x to the 4th power. Okay. Now, make a little tiny box there. You have x to the 4th. You get x to any other powers. Yeah, second. So you're going to have to factor. Now, your zero's there. So we have 2 terms. So just like before when we had 2 terms, we're going to set up the GCF. And then we're going to see if we have a difference of perfect squares. Just like I always have done when there's 2 terms. Now I have a question. It's a simple question. Do you have a higher power than 2? I mean, look, do you have x? Yeah, you have x to the 4th. So anytime you have a higher power than 2, you need to come over here. Just split this box in half here and just put more dops, question mark, and then you make just always 4 parentheses, okay? Plus minus, plus minus. If you have that set up, you can't go wrong, okay? Now your GCF, do you have a negative in front? No. Do you have x on everything? Yes. But you have x to the 4th and x to the 2nd, so I don't want to just do x because then I can't get an x somewhere to cancel, so I have to do the x to the 2nd. Then 3 and 75, 3 comma 75, can't believe I'm doing it on this, but that's the GCF is 3. So you need to factor out a 3x to the 2nd. Okay, and then circle that. Any GCF here is going to need to be circled. And now, especially if it has x. So since it has x, you just put a 3x to the 2nd in parentheses and then continue on. And do it in this square right here. Now you go up and divide here by 3x to the 2nd. Now the x to the 2nds then cancel right there. That's why you want to do the 2nd. So 3 divided by 3 is 1. Now x to the 4th divided by x to the 2nd would be x to the 2nd. It just takes the x to the 4th down 2 levels. Minus 25. Now do we have a dots there? Yes. We got a minus, and 25 is 5 times 5. X to the 2nd is x times x. Then 1 is 1 times 1. Okay, so let's fill that out. We got 1x, 1x, and then 5 and 5. Now, the more dots part. Well, this is a plus. If it's a plus, you circle it and bring that parentheses over here and put it along next to your GCF factor. And then you can take these 2 out because you can't do a dots with a plus. It's a difference for a reason. And then, yeah, you have minus, but 5 is not a perfect square, so we can circle that and go put that alongside my other factors, and then I can cross this out. So there were no more dots, but I at least have to think about it. Okay, now I did not leave you a bunch of workspace. What you do, you put equals 0 after your factors, and you got F1, F2, and F3. So F1, you got 3x to the 2nd equaling 0. F2, you got 1x plus 5 equals 0. And then 1x minus 5 equals 0. Now, do the x's without powers first. That's easy because you know you only get one answer from those. Okay, 1x equals 5. You don't need to divide by 1. So 5 is my first answer. Then subtract 5 from both sides. Negative 5 is my second. I don't need to worry about the 1. Now you're wondering, what about this one? Well, you're going to divide both sides by 3. And then if you have an exponent with a 0, don't square root or any of that crap. That's idiotic if it's 0. Any other number, yeah, but not 0. All that means is we're going to put 2 of these answers as 0. Had that been x to the 3rd, I'd put 3 of the answers as 0. Okay? So we have this filled out. So really we have 5, negative 5, and 0, but I want you to put the x there so you kind of have your 4 things. Okay, now underline that. We're going to use that space for the next problem. Okay, 2x to the 4th minus 13x to the 2nd minus 45 equals 0. So x has 4 solutions at this point, I think. Okay, there might be a repeat of a solution. That's fine, but... Okay, now I have x to the 4th power, and I've also got x to the 2nd power. Okay, so again, we're going to have to factor, but this time there's 3 terms. We got the x to the 4th, the x to the 2nd, and there's a constant. So I'm going to do the GCF, same thing I've always done when I've had 3 terms. GCF, and then the T-chart. Now, a couple things about this T-chart. Get your A times C, and I want you putting down here what A equals. You're going to have to really pay attention to that, or it's going to be screwed up. Okay? And then here, since we have a power higher than 4, there's a possibility I'm going to have more dots. Okay? Might want to make it a little bigger than that. You just make 4 parentheses. They don't have to be wide at all. Just plus, minus, plus, minus. And again, if it's just x to the 2nd in the whole equation, you don't have to do that. But if it's x to a higher power, you're going to want to see that there. Okay, so GCF. Well, I don't have the negative in front. I don't have x on everything. So I'm going to punch in 2, 13, and 45 and see what I get. Some of you know. Some of you don't. That's fine. I'm willing to placate all you. GCF's just 1, so if it's just an empty 1, forget that, just like always. A, B, C. Okay. So A is 2, and C is negative 45. So that makes a negative 90. Okay. And that's a difference of 13, because it's negative. And the signs have to be different because it's a negative product. So 1 and 90, nope. 2 and 45, nope. 3 and 30, nope. 90 does not divide by 4, it's a decimal. 90 divided by 5 is 18. I believe 18 minus 5 is 30, so I want to go with those two. Now my 13's minus, so I know 18's minus, and it's a difference because we had a negative, so the signs have to be the opposite because a positive times a negative is a negative, so positive 5. Okay, now here's where you can't screw up. The A is 2, and then put in parentheses x to the 4th, okay? It's just like I just did. So A is not a 1, so we want to make 2 sets, okay? Now, forget about that. We're going to lead off with 2, and then you have to split the x to the 4th in half. So that's x second, and then followed by plus 5 minus 18. Okay, now the GCFs. You remember, you're dividing by the GCFs. So you got 2 and 5, 2 comma 5, it's just 1. Okay, so you're just going to leave that factor like it is, 2x squared plus 5. Cross out that so you don't use that anymore. 2 and 18 has a GCF of 2. See, looky here. Okay, so 2. So we need to divide that by 2, and that's going to be 1x to the 2nd minus 9. Okay. We didn't have a GCF, remember. I haven't written anything down yet. Now this is a plus. Well, there's no, for the more dots part, this is a plus, so there's no way that could be a dot. So I circle that, and I just put it down here. I just put it over here. Parentheses 2x squared plus 5. That's prime. That's finished. Done. So, and I can get rid of 2 of those then if it's a plus. Okay, then the minus, we have it, and 9 is 3 times 3. And x to the 2nd, now x to the 2nd is x times x. That's 1, 1, okay? All right, so I do come over here and do a dot. So I don't circle that because I can make that into a dot. So it's 1x, 3, 3. Now circle those. And we're going to go put those factors alongside the 2x to the second plus 5. So 1x plus 3, 1x minus 3. And I put equals 0, and that's my f1, my f2, my f3. Okay, so to the scratch paper I go because I don't have much room down here. So 2x to the second power plus 5 equals 0. Okay, 1x plus 3 equals 0. 1x minus 3 equals 0. Okay, so I'm going to solve the non-second powers first. So I'm going to minus 3, x is negative 3. I don't need to divide by 1. It's really unnecessary. Plus 3, x equals 3. Again, we don't need to divide by 1. Now, I get 2 answers from this because given the fact it's to the second power, so I minus 5. Now I divide by 2. Now I'm aware that negative 5 would not divide evenly by 2, but we still have to take care of the second power, so let's divide it, okay? So negative 5 divided by 2 is negative 2.5. Okay, now it's a second power. So let's square root each side, because that'll give you just x. And then let's square root that. But it's a negative, okay? Anytime I have a square root, negative square root, we need to put I and I for the 2 answers, and then I can make it positive. I'm going to put the little I that tells me I did that. Now, 2.5, is that on the board? 25 is. 2.5 is not on the board. And I don't think a decimal can be divided. Then just leave it in its square root, okay? You can't divide, it's not on the board, you can't divide it by anything, so you just put I, and then if the number's in the square root, it goes behind the I. I really don't care where you put it, but make sure you put negative in front of your second answer, because you have a positive and a negative. That's how square roots work. So again, if you divide it's a decimal and you put the square root over it, just leave the decimal in the square root, because it's probably not on the board. I know it's not. I don't have any decimals on the board, and so forth. Okay. 2x to the fifth minus 162x. I would be looking for a grand total of 5 solutions because I have x to the fifth power. So I have the x to the fifth, and I've also got x to the first. Okay. I'll put a 1 there just because I want to. Okay, so you're going to have to factor. So you have 2 terms, so we'd look for a GCF. And then we're going to see if we have a difference of perfect squares, just like I've always done when there are 2 terms. Now, due to the fact that x is to a higher than second power, I need to do a more dots. So I'll just put more. You should be knowing what that means. And you just make 4 parentheses right alongside each other. Plus, minus, okay? GCF negative in front, no. You got x on both of them? Yeah, you have x to the fifth and x, so we want to go with just x. And let's try 2 and 162. Okay, I got 2, so 2x is the greatest common factor. So we need to factor out 2x, and then we're going to go divide by 2x. So anytime I divide by x, I should get the x's to cancel somewhere. So 2 divided by 2 is 1. Dividing x to the fifth by x takes it to x to the fourth. Minus 162 divided by 2 is 81. Okay, now, first off, you had a GCF. Circle it, write it down here in parentheses. If you have a GCF, you have to remember that. Now, don't circle that. We go see if we have a dots. We do minus. 81 is on the board. That is 9 times 9. X to the fourth is x to the second times x to the second, and then 1, 1. So I go 1x to the second, 1x to the second, 9, 9. Now, go to the more dots. If you have a plus, circle it. You ain't doing it. And put that parentheses alongside the GCF factor. You got a minus here. 9 is 3 times 3. 1 is 1 times 1, and x to the second's xx. Okay? So I do not circle that. Instead, I do that. So 1x, 3, 3. Now circle those and put those two factors down here. So parentheses 1x plus 3, parentheses 1x minus 3. Actually, you can make your line of factors just right down here. Okay, all those, that whole product can equal 0. So you got 2x, that could equal 0. You've got 1x to the second power plus 9, that could equal 0. You've got 1x plus 3, that could equal 0. You got 1x minus 3, that could equal 0. So let's do all the ones without second powers first. Right here, I just divide by 2. So that's 0. There's my first solution. That has a second power. I'm going to do that last. Minus 3, I get negative 3. Plus 3, I get 3. Okay, now let's take a look at the plus 9. Okay, we need to subtract 9, and you can get rid of the 1 if it's a 1. So x to the second equals negative 9. Now, square root. Again, you can't square root a negative, so you need to put I on your solutions part, and then you can make it positive. Now, 9 is on the board. It is. So I don't need to divide. I just scribble that out, replace it with what it equals, and it's just 3. Just the number 3. Don't put square root 3. It's just 3. So it's 3i and 3i negative. Numbers on the board, when square rooted, you just replace them with their equal. Okay, and that's it. Those are all different solutions, believe it or not. Okay, then the final problem in this video. You have 25x to the third minus 100x second minus 1x plus 4. So there's 3 answers. Only 3. So we have x to the third, x to the second, and x. Obviously, we're going to have to factor. So we have those 3 and then a constant. Well, that makes 4 terms. So that makes the big grouping box. Now remember how to set up factor by grouping. You can make parentheses plus parentheses, then space parentheses plus space parentheses, then space parentheses. Okay, that gets you the grouping every time. Now, did you have a higher exponent than a 2? Yeah, so you're going to have to make a more dots section. It's not that big a deal. It's just, I know it's an annoying little extra step. You just have to, and this is as hard as this gets in the whole class, okay, as far as factoring goes. So grouping, we put 25x to the third minus 100x to the second. Then I group negative 1x with the plus 4. And now I'm looking for GCFs. Do you have a negative first here? Nope. Do you have x on both? Yeah, but you have third power and second power, so you need to go with a second power. And then 25 and 100, the GCF's 25. Here, look, I'll show you. Yep, 25. So we put 25 with that. And 25x, the second power, is popping out of there. Okay, now that gives me 1. X third divided by x second is just x, because the x's cancel here. Whenever you're dividing by x, you should get something to cancel. Minus 4. Now let's looky here. Do you have a negative in front there? You bet. So we'll be dividing by negative. You don't have x belonging to both. And then 1 and 4 has a GCF of 1, but it's negative 1, so you have to go with it. So I factor out negative 1. And that gives me positive 1x. The plus switches to minus because you're dividing by a negative, and then it's 4. Okay, so in each parentheses I have 1x minus 4. So I'm going to factor that parentheses out. And that gives me 25x to the second power. If it's plus negative, we need to write minus 1. Okay, so I'm at the end of the road there. Now, do you have more dots? Well, you got minus here, and yeah, 4 is 2 times 2, but this is just regular x. Circle it, get that out, and bring that over here. Okay, that's a prime factor. Can't do anything. Okay, minus, got it. 1's 1 times 1. Now, this time my x is to an even power. X times x, and 25 is 5 times 5. So don't circle that. You bring that over here. 5x, 5x, 1, 1. Okay, those get circled, and we just bring them down. So 5x plus 1, 5x minus 1. And those can all equal 0. F1, F2, F3. You don't have to label the factors if you can clearly see them. Okay, so 1x minus, all these are easy to solve because I don't have any second powers. Those are the ones that are annoying once I get it all factored out. So plus 4, I get 4. Minus 1, I get negative 1. Divide by 5. Now I can leave that as a fraction because I don't have to worry about the second power. But you can divide if you want, but you don't have to worry about the second power. So it'd be negative, either negative 0.2 or negative 1/5. Either one's okay. This one here would be just positive 1/5 or positive 0.2.